It's good to continue where we left off. We have covered the number of assessments, 2 per learner, and we looked at the standards, what sort of things you have to assess. Just bear with me. We have looked at those aspects, the number of assessments per learner, 2 assessments per learner for 2 assessments, for 2 learners, 2 assessments per learner, 4 assessment plans in total. And they are going to assess different things at each instance. You are not going to assess one thing throughout all the 4 assessments. It's very clear now how we can set up these things, and the standards are the questions you are going to set based on the discipline that you are working in. Could be health and social care, plumbing, chemistry, mathematics, but have different types of standards you are assessing. There's no simulations for Unit 2 and Unit 3. It's got to be real staff, real candidates in a real work environment. We agree on that one. Now, what are you going to exactly choose in terms of methods of assessment? For Unit 2, minimum requirements are as follows. I just want you to follow me step by step. There is a minimum requirement. You can exceed those minimum requirements, that's fine, but you can't go below them, for a reason that we want to make sure that we train you with excellence. And when we let you go into the real world of work as an assessor, you exactly know what to do. I'll go back to the screen and begin to develop this in idea. I'll take myself out of the way. Let me bring back I'll take myself out of the way. Yeah, not part, yes. So, as a minimum requirement for Unit 2, I'll just put it right there. So, what methods of assessments are we looking for? Very important question. What methods of assessments are we looking for here? I beg your pardon. As a minimum, you must have assessment method 1, observation. You must have an observation. This is where you observe your candidate performing a certain set of tasks against the standards as you have already designed those questions. What it means that in here, after you observe, you are going to write what is called as write an observation what? Report. Observation what? Report. You're going to write an observation report of what you've seen the candidate do. In this piece of evidence also, we expect you to incorporate questioning the learner. Questioning who? The learner, your learner. Questioning the learner, this is where you have a set of questions that you can ask your learner, maybe to cover evidence which cannot naturally occur through a demonstration or observation, or to test knowledge and understanding. You can ask a number of questions, and these questions must be underpinned by the actual standards from your practice. Even the things that you observe must be underpinned by the actual standards. So you're going to be observing, that's one assessment method. You're going to do questioning the learner. The other minimum we require, by all means necessary, is number 3. This is where you examine you examine the work or the product of work. Examine product of work. Okay. Examine the products of work. In some work, let me just make a point here. In some disciplines or industry, you are required to produce a tangible product that you can see. Maybe if it's ceramics, you're producing some vase or cups or plates. You can examine that, whatever you're producing. But how do we then examine a product of work where a service is being provided? This is where we become a bit more creative to be able to judge or to use that method. Based on the standards, you know how a service is supposed to look like as it's being delivered. So you can observe and make comments on that service as it's being delivered. Is it being delivered according to the required standards? Are the underlying factors being met? So things like that. So when you're designing your first assessment plan and the questions that follow, you must design them such that you are able to observe part of the work, you are able to examine the product of work, and you are able to question the learner. So this, when it's actually completed, you can bring that piece of evidence where you wrote your observation report, where you recorded the learner answering your questions, and how you observed or examined the product of work or service. So that's a piece of evidence. Once you do that, then you are fulfilled. There are many other assessment methods, but for this exercise, between you and us, we require you that you give us this as a minimum. So if I proceed, let me go back there. If I proceed with this, I'll extend the page a little bit. So for Unit 2, if you produce an assessment plan that covers that, Unit 2 will be satisfied. Okay? In terms of assessment, in terms of assessment plans. Okay? And once you complete these assessment plans, it's a big tick, and you're going to have 4 of these. So, with this, you are actually making good points and meeting the standards that are required for you to be able to meet the assessment criteria for this course. Now, we're going to link this Unit 2 to Unit 3, so that Unit 3 would enhance your actual practice. What are the things being looked or sought for? What I'd like you to do at this point is just to pause this video and play back and forth again, so that you can actually get the true rudiments of the requirements of assessment here. I want to simply carry on here. Let's see if I can do that. I'll insert a new page. I'll insert a blank page. Excellent. So here I want us to look at Unit 3. Probably let me use another color. Unit 3. This is about assessing knowledge, skills, and understanding. If I go back into the actual specification for Unit 3, the actual Unit 3, where are we now? Oh, Unit 3 is the last one, yeah. Unit 3, yeah, yes. This is about assessing vocational skills, knowledge, and understanding. Here we are looking at the actual skills, knowledge, and understanding. Slightly different from occupational competence, occupational observation, or practical observation. But now there's a way in which we want you to evidence the information, and this is where we're going to go to. Let me I beg your pardon. If we move up, okay, excellent. Here we go. In here, what we require is over in this document. I'll go through it bit by bit. Okay. Yes. As you can see over here, for Unit 3, which is assessing vocation, skills, knowledge, understanding, we are looking at, in your assessment, you must cover work such that the performance evidence for at least 3 of the following. The performance evidence must be, let me just read the statement as it is. There must be evidence to cover all of the assessment method listed in the unit. That's clear, very clear. As a minimum, and I'll explain how this can, as a minimum, here, there must be performance evidence, at least 3 of the following assessment methods. So, in Unit 3, when you are assessing your learners, you must either choose 1, 2, 3 as a minimum. You can exceed, do more, or you can go for assignments, projects, case studies as a minimum. Or you can choose a combination of these. So what do we mean by this? Assessment of the learner in simulated environment. You can actually design an observation here. If you want it, you can simulate. Here you can simulate in a classroom or auditorium. You set up equipment, etc. People are working as if they're in a work environment. You observe them that way. You can do that. A simulated is allowed. Assessment of the learner in simulated environments. You can produce that evidence. Skills tests or written assessments. Let me go back to the board and explain a little bit more on this. I just go down there. So here, what we're going to do, I want us, with the help of this information for Unit 3, when you design that assessment plan, if you, for example, you choose skills test, that's the method. How are you going to do this? Maybe it could be written, assessment. Maybe a paper which they answer. Written could be a written assessment. There was oral and written paper, or I beg your pardon, written questions. Oral and written questions. How do you answer that? How do you do that one? Oral, it could be professional discussion. Professional discussion, for lack of space. In professional discussion, this is where you have a discussion based on the standards. Your candidate is giving feedback to you as you discuss the area. Make sure they take control of the answers, not always you speaking as if you're giving them your own solutions. It's got to be that they themselves are actually taking a lead. Once you throw the question on the table or a discussion point on the table, they're contributing professionally. So that's what you can do there. It could be assignment. You might be familiar with this. An assignment which you have developed. This is now like coursework. Coursework. You can tell them maybe write 1,000 words about this topic. You ask them questions in that topic, they answer it. Similar to what we give you sometimes. So in assignment, so in Unit 3, we'll be judging whether have you used skills test. Is there evidence of a written assessment and your candidates have answered it? So now it links to the first 4 assessment plans you made. Did you make a combination of these in that assessment plan? You can use it for the evidence. If you haven't, you might as well devise more assessment plans that can cover these elements. Are you with me? So let's see if we can extend the page and add some more. Another one is a case study. Now you just use another case study. Case studies. Okay, what's a case study? You can look at, in your industry, what happened in a certain area, how things are moving on, or maybe situations that happened in a workplace that is publicly being discussed, and you ask students to review those stories and then suggest what should be done or what shouldn't be done. So you can let them review the case study, and you're gonna ask them to maybe hand in 2 A4s worth of reviews of the case study, and you mark that. Okay? And there is also what we call, I hope this is making sense of how you're gonna be judged on Unit 3, the kind of evidence which is required of you. You must do those assessments in trying to demonstrate vocational skills, knowledge, and understanding. You must prepare an assessment that covers at least 3 of these. 3 of these. So you choose. You can exceed, but you can't go below 3. The last one, which is mentioned, is recognizing prior learning. Recognizing prior learning. Some of you came on this course and we did recognize some of your past learning. How did we do that? Remember, we a set of questions we're asking you. We asked you to produce evidence of what done in the past. We also asked you to answer some questions to bring you up to date. Because if you have learned something in the past, we also know that standards evolve. You discover that maybe some elements of the standards that were being practiced at that time have been revised because of the legal environment. Sometimes nothing has changed, and that could be an advantage to the learner. They don't have to do any more work on that. So now, how do you devise a system to assess prior learning or recognizing prior learning? It could be initial assessment. You can call it initial assessment, right? Under this initial assessment, there is a set or range of questions, or it could be actually through guided discussion, through guided discussion or questioning, really. Because for you to find out whether this candidate has had prior learning, there's a way in which we have to devise some question and ask them. As they answer those ones, you can. So you can choose any of these methods to be able to complete Unit 3. Once you do that, you're home and dry. So before I continue, let me bring myself up a little bit on the screen and make one or 2 points. It is very essential to, just bear with me, I want to put myself somewhere right, maybe here. Excellent, I'm all right here, So you see a number of things that can be achieved based on the way you organize your work and the way you understand how this work must be done. We will summarize the things that you have to do and how you can link each piece of work that produced to another unit. Remember, we can do holistic assessment. If you produce any of the documents so well that it's detailed, we can actually use that piece of evidence to meet other criteria. The same thing you'll be also looking at for your learners. Now, I want to summarize, and I want to make this the final point. Let me just take myself out of the way. I want to summarize. In my summaries, I'll just go back to the original documents where we started from. So in summary, what we're saying is assessment plans must be produced, and the well-produced assessment plans is based on you choosing 2 learners, learner 1, learner 2. Each of these learners must have 2 plans. Can you see that? And this level is the planning level. When you have 2 assessment plans for each learner, you're going to have in total 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Okay, that is our agreement. And then we also said we can actually have a bit more detail in terms of what we produce. At the assessment plan, which is right here, at this stage, we must now look at the actual standards, which is the questions, and from the standards, which probably they'll be from 1 to 20, depending on what you have, choose in the first assessment few standards to assess, and after you choose those ones, you actually now choose also the assessment method. Similarly, you have to examine this same candidate on different standards which they haven't covered in the first assessment, which you'd planned for. You may go for 2, 6, 7, 8, 10. Similarly, you have to choose assessment plans. So you can see the pattern still continues that way. Secondly, we come to the candidate A. We find that we can assess them on the same things. If they're on the same course or they're different course, choose the same pattern. Don't judge them on the same things on the 2 separate assessments. The first assessment may look at 1, 4, 7 standard. The second one may look at 9, 11, or 12, or as the case might be. Similarly, you choose assessment methods. Once you do that, then you proceed to the next level. For Unit 2, you must now produce evidence such that you have observed your candidate and write an observation report. You must also include questioning the learner. You must also produce the questions that you asked the learner and how they answered. And also you must include in your plan, examine products of work. And we said if there is no tangible product, like in some of the disciplines, you may look at how the service is produced, is given out in that place. Then, if you really do this, you'll have satisfied Unit 2 in terms of assessment plans, because that's what you require to put as content. Then finally, we looked at Unit 3. How does Unit 3 look like? What sort of things are you looking at? In your assessment plans for Unit 3, you will have covered or maybe covered already in the previous assessment. Skills test. Use this method of skills test. How are you gonna judge the skills test? You do a written assessment paper, a multiple choice also. Or you choose, remember 3 minimum, or you choose oral and written questions. It could be professional discussion because it's oral, or you can be asking them questions and they give you feedback. Written questions can be covered in skills test. Assignment, this could be a coursework where you give your candidates an amount of things to write about. You can ask them to produce maybe 3 A4s coursework. It depends on what you're looking for and how detailed the work is supposed to be. And you can use a case study. A case study, this is whereby you give them some stories of what happened in real life, and they can do a review of the case study and give you feedback, and maybe they give you 2 A4s. Then you can also use what we call recognizing prior learning by way of initial assessment. Prior learning is always picked up at initial assessment. This is why initial assessment is a very critical part of the assessment process. Some people call it diagnostic, where you find out where a person is coming from, you find where their strength lies, or you find out where their gaps are, and then you begin to put some plans in there. So in this way, we have now come to a place where we know where we're going and what we're supposed to produce. Thank you very much. As I close, let me make this point. Thank you very much for paying attention, and from this point, start working on your assessment plans. We have posted a template on the e-learning. Once you download that one, contact your tutor. They explain to you what the content means. Maybe in the next session, I might even go through the template. But you are free to design your own template, making sure that the following parameters are included: the name of the assessor, which is yourself, the candidate name, a time, duration of assessment, place of assessment, and also assessment methods, minimum things to be included in there, and also the standards to be met, method of assessment for each section, the level of attainment you expect, and the decision, pass or fail, or you have a range. Those things must be in there. And at some place there must be an assessor feedback to your candidate. And some place there must be somewhere where you sign and your candidate signs after the assessment has been carried out. Very important. Thank you very much. I'm your tutor, Dr. John Lukomona, and I'm waiting for your call in case you have any question. Thank you. Bye for now.